Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the stream.
Welcome to Horror Story Club.
That's exactly right. This is Horror Story Club. If you're
It
clicking on this
absolutely is.
thumbnail after the live, this is a weekly book club story club where Sarah Ray Werner and myself, we are both writers, are working our way through this anthology of short horror stories. We're here every week, and we're here this week discussing a tale called The Whimper of Whipped Dogs by Harlan Ellison. Welcome. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. If you're here, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Hello. Welcome, 60 Hangers. It's great to see you. Oh, well, okay. Before we dive into what is a doozy of a story this week, Asa, how's your writing going?
My writing is going fine. I just realized that we should identify some of the content warnings on the off chance that you're not watching this video, you're listening to it. This is a disturbing story.
Yes.
Despite the title, incidentally, there's not any cruelty against animals. However, there are depictions, graphic depictions of sexual assault. There is a lot of violence in general. This is a disturbing tale. So just if you're listening on the replay, know in advance, Sarah and I will speak sensitively about these matters, but they will be discussed. Yeah, how's my writing going? Thanks for asking, Sarah. Okay, well, I actually, it's going pretty well because today I kind of have time to write after this and had a little bit this morning. So what I tried to do yesterday afternoon was kind of like brainstorm, set the stage for today. I'm writing a new short story this week, but what happened was I ended up drafting a whole story. Like the stage setting evolved to kind of like one sentence led to another. All of a sudden, there was a dramatic situation, and I had a draft. How's your writing going?
Okay, well, first of all, that sounds incredible. And I love how often, and it works both ways, how our intentions to either simply get started or to write a whole thing often get switched. And I'm very delighted that that happened to you. Were you writing from a prompt, or was this just, I just want to write a story free form?
Just another short story. I finished the last one. The Christmas horror story is in the revising phase. It's like a firm first draft. So it's like time to start fresh. And I didn't know what it was going to happen. But I think I'm going to do this big live stream on Friday about how to write a good scene. And one thing I realized in writing the Christmas horror story that like all I really had to begin with in that story was like a dramatic situation, like some kind of setup, just an image. It was the young girl next to Santa. She knows about an affair. Like that's all I had. And then just kind of trusted that. So I just kind of bit about, but when try to think of another dramatic situation, had that, and then started writing. And all of a sudden, yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
And I'm excited to hear your stream on Friday. Like
I'm excited too. It's gonna go for all you regulars. This is gonna be true. I'm gonna drop some knowledge. Is the plan from screenwriting experience, screenwriting school, all that good stuff. All of it applies to fiction. But yeah. What about yourself?
I love it. Let's see. I sat down to write today and I did not write. It's one of those days where life catches up with you. You sit down with those intentions. I was like, I'm going to get so much done today. It's going to be amazing. And then I got zero of that done and instead spent time in a meeting on the phone. I paid some bills in between all of this stuff. It was just like stuff like that. And so I haven't done anything that's like satisfying in a creative way today. And so I have, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. And this is, I feel like, this is life sometimes. I've got some stuff after this, and then I've got a voice acting gig, and that usually like drains my energy pretty thoroughly. So
yeah,
I might not do any writing today.
Well, that's
and
okay.
I have to be okay with that. Yeah.
Clearing the plate.
Yes.
The plate is clear for when you can come back to it.
Yes, that's true.
All right. Well, folks, we encourage discussion in this group. So thoughts, reflections, problems with the story, compliments of the story, please put them into the comments, and Sarah and I will do our best to engage with those. We start out our discussion. Sarah has gotten very good at this with the tell your friend at the bar what this story is about. So, Sarah, thank you for the gin and tonic. That's so generous of you to cover it for me. You read the story, the Whimper Whipped Dogs. That's just a weird title. What's it about?
Oh my gosh. Well, my friend at the bar. Um, I think I'd start this one out by asking if you've seen Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, sure. Love it.
Okay. So there's Rosemary's Baby, and it's not the same story. It's not even a similar story, but it has some reminiscent elements. So basically, what happens is Beth moves into a new apartment, and she's on the 7th floor. She moves into her new apartment. One of the very first things that happened on the night after she stained her windows, which was her window shutters, which is very important. It's not important. She sees a woman get brutally murdered in the courtyard and the flower beds below. And it's like brutally murdered. Like we see the details.
I'm gonna do you want to read us that first sentence so that
I do. It's just good. Like, yeah, it sets us up very nicely.
Yeah. Why don't you take us there?
Okay. On the night after the day she had stained the louvered window shutters of her new apartment on East 52nd Street, Beth saw a woman slowly and hideously knifed to death in the courtyard of her building. I'm going to read the next sentence too, because that's very important. She was one of 26 witnesses to the ghoulish scene, and like them, she did nothing to stop it.
Yeah.
This is the hinge of our story. Like first and foremost, some stories set us off by setting up the scene. This story says, here's 100% what this story is going to be dealing with in 2 sentences. And there's a lot going on here. There's the mundanity of Beth's window shutters. There's also the woman being stabbed horribly. And we get more details of the horrifying stabbing. It unfolds as we read a few paragraphs in. And what's curious is no one does anything to stop it. Now, immediately, and I promise I will go on with the description of the rest of the story, it did bring to mind there's that urban legend. Are you familiar? One? Well, just of like, oh, a woman is murdered in this, on the city street, and like people just watched and no one did anything. Oh, and I didn't know if this is where
I feel that's like a well-documented general phenomenon.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if like this inspired that or if this is like reflecting some of that once it happened, but yeah. So I'm gonna continue.
Yeah. Okay. So what happens? Right. Yeah.
So what happens is there is this gruesome murder for multiple pages, and we hear that Beth, and we don't get anyone else's perspective except for Beth, who is a ballet dance choreographer, which I thought was very interesting. She feels like she can't help, or she doesn't think in the moment like she should. She's just a witness, and she finds herself even thinking like, I can't even tell if that woman's pretty or not. It's like very dissociative. After the murder, Beth realizes a few things. Number one, that she just witnessed a horrible murder. She also realizes that a fog has arisen in the courtyard. And she also realizes that a pair of eyes have been watching her. And they're horrible, creepy. I feel like it's described as both ancient and childlike. And the eyes are on the 9th floor. And we'll get into that, I think, during our discussion here. But
she's on the 7th floor.
And
right?
Yes, Beth is on the 7th floor.
Okay.
And she looks across during the murder. I know this is kind of long for a bar telling.
I'm with you.
There's this guy who lives on the 7th floor also across. And as she's looking down from the creepy eyes on the 9th floor, she looks down. Yes, birthday balloons. It's so appropriate. She looks across and she sees this man in another 7th floor apartment, like staring at her in a creepy way. Okay. The night ends. Everything is terrible. The police eventually shoot the murderer in a bar. And basically what happens is, this is so awful. This is so awful in so many ways. Beth ends up in a relationship with the creepy guy who is watching her from the 7th floor. This is not the guy with the creepy eyes on the 9th floor, which are just eyes. This is Creepy Ray, who we find out his name is. And Ray is the most red flag raising, toxic, awful person ever. The way that they meet is after the murder. They're in an elevator. He stops the elevator with her in it. And like, if you've, yes, thumbs up to elevator stopping, I guess. I'm sorry. These Zoom symbols are very silly. I'm trying not to do them. And so Beth is trapped in this elevator with Ray, and she finds that she doesn't really have her own will anymore. And so when he says, like, hey, you know, that was a crazy murder last night, she can't help but respond, yes. And he says, what's your name? And she tells him. So she finds herself like really unable to take her own actions. And after a while, they talk for a while, and then at the very end, and I think this is indicative of where their relationship goes, he says, oh, well, why'd you stop the elevator? And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she starts the elevator again. And it's like, and I had to go back and I was like, no, he stopped the elevator. He's a creepo. And so after that, right after the elevator scene, I feel like right after that, it's like, and then 3 weeks went later, 3 weeks went past and they were like dating, and you're like, oh, this is a nightmare. And he's awful. He's abusive. He is like, he cheats on her. He does a lot of really terrible, abusive, physically, vocally abusive things. And eventually he kind of leaves her and ghosts her. And Asa, correct me, a lot of this was it felt very like fluid, kind of. It wasn't like and then. It was a lot of feelings and a lot of really horrible things happening. But yeah, eventually, he ghosts her and decides, after they have this argument, he doesn't want to see her anymore. And I wrote in the margins, good, and a lot of check marks. And then this weird thing happens. So Ray dumps her and just pretends that she doesn't exist. And then after that, there's this refrain that's repeated throughout the story. And it's, Beth did something, 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 and the city responded to her overtures. And we get this refrain 3 times, and it's a very cause and effect thing. And this is just such a strangely structured story. But we get the feeling that Ray, who is given a reason for his abusive behavior as the city made me do it, you get the sense that Beth has kind of taken this on as well. She acts, and then the city responds, and people are crueler to her. Things are disgusting. Like, just the language in here just becomes very gross. She gets overcharged for a disgusting hamburger. The city keeps responding, and until finally she wakes up one night and there's a burglar in her apartment taking her TV, and he trips on the phone cord, and it gets really upsetting. He begins to, this was not his intention in entering the apartment. He begins to try to choke her to death. And Beth realizes she's dying. She calls out for, I think something hits her. She realizes that Ray has been essentially a dark priest for some kind of horrible new god in the city. And she calls out for this god to save her. And the burglar in her apartment is abruptly shredded into very graphic, tiny pieces. And Beth feels safe and protected once more. So.
Yeah. That was good. That's a good summary. It
was hard to summarize.
Yeah, this one is tough, and I think you're absolutely right that, like, while it is a linear story chronologically, it's not really too concerned with that. So it does kind of is like almost montagey in its telling. So I think it is a tough one. It is a tough one.
But yeah.
So I think I have been thinking a lot about what makes a short story, excuse me, and, like, kind of taking some classes and looking at what famous writers have said about this. And one idea that keeps cropping up is that a short story is a defining moment in someone's life, a before after kind of moment in someone's life. And this did very much feel like that. In that, it's when she became a New Yorker, really. Is essentially, I think that's what this story is saying on the surface. But I think that would be reductive just to say she became a New Yorker, right?
Right.
Presumably one can achieve that and get used to the rats and the curtness without killing someone.
I mean,
and that is what happened. So for me, like, that's an initial question that I want to dig into with you today, Sarah, is like, what is this transformation? What does it mean underneath it all? Gosh, I mean, yeah, there's that's a big picture point that I have.
Yeah. And I think also some of the big picture things that I came away with were not only similarities to Rosemary's Baby, where a young woman moves into a new apartment. The tenants of the apartment turn out to be Satanists. They impregnate her with Satan's child, and it's a nightmare. This had some similar vibes to that, but also, I don't know if you've seen Cure by Kurosawa.
Oh, it's on my list. I haven't seen it.
This is not in any way plot-wise similar to that, but it does deal with how cruelty is passed on from human to human. So if any of you in the comments have seen Cure, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, or maybe I'm misinterpreting the whole movie incorrectly, which might be the case. But I think that this story is very much based on the things that influence us. What happens when we move away from something that feels familiar and something that we call home. And I almost want to say what happens when we allow ourselves to become a victim. And I realize that's kind of a potentially contentious or dangerous thing to say, but I think those elements are all here.
I agree. Potentially dangerous, but also I do think the most apparent interpretation. So I think that's reasonable. A point of clarity, Sarah, that I want to about the elevator. Okay, so if we go to the bottom of 123, this was a really surreal moment for me because the scene starts with dude stopping the elevator, and then at the end though it says, "Why don't you turn on the elevator and we can go?" He said and smiled again. She did it, wondering why she had stopped the elevator in the first place. So did she stop the elevator? Or did he stop the elevator?
No, he's gaslighting her. And this is my reading. I might be very wrong. So let's have a spirited debate, because this is where, and honestly, stories like this are open to interpretation. So at the bottom of 122, between the 5th and 4th floors, he, so the strange young man, hit the off switch and the elevator jerked to a halt. Beth stared at him and he smiled innocently. And so the way that I read it was, he stops the elevator. He engages her in a conversation she doesn't want to be in. He gets her to tell him her name, where she lives. He asks her out to dinner, and also says some very belittling things about the college she went to and women in general, and then convinces her in a way that, this is a little silly, but there's a Supernatural episode. I'm sorry, I've seen so much of this show. There's a Supernatural episode where the main villain, the sort of evil that he does is convincing people of the things that he... Show? Oh, Supernatural. Sorry.
Supernatural. Sorry. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you now.
Okay, I haven't seen all 15 seasons or whatever, but I've seen most of it. And I feel like this may have also been an X-Files episode where there's just a person who's very persuasive, and that is the danger of them. And so I feel like even more than just persuading her, he is somehow getting into what she's allowed to do and say. She's almost being puppeted. And this is just, I know that we say the word gaslight a lot, and it means a little bit more than I think common usage. We use it in place of, oh, he lied, or he controlled, or she lied, or whatever. But like, I think this is actually gaslighting, convincing a person that they didn't do or think something that they did do or think. Like, he stopped the elevator and he's like, why'd you stop the elevator? In kind of like a nasty way. Oh, Lore, yes. Here's some comments coming in.
Lore Huntress says, hi all. He gaslit her for sure. She also finds something familiar about him and she wants to like him, even though he does set off flags for her.
Yeah.
She does say she was enjoying the conversation. She rather liked him.
Yeah. Yep. The narrator says that.
Okay. Right.
I'm sorry. I'm pressing my interpretation onto you when I shut
No,
up.
no, I don't think they're incompatible. If anything, I do think that this is kind of a common element of gaslighting, where there is, if everything about the person is repellent to you, I think it's easier to extricate yourself from a toxic relationship. Whereas if there's like kind of like, oh, this and that, some positive things, then maybe you'll stay and absorb some of the abuse.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because I think that you're right. And I think that that's what Ellison may have been going at for here. But I think at the same time, it feels like she's not in charge of her actions. It feels like that a few times. Just like in the very beginning, when we see that first murder of, what's her name? Leona something.
Largentui.
Corelli?
Look at the Largent.
Yes. The woman who's being stabbed at the very beginning, she can't scream for help. Like she's opening her mouth and there's no sound coming out. And that's a very strange thing that happens. And you kind of get the feeling that Beth herself too is being silenced. Not only in the end when she almost gets murdered by the burglar, but even here, it's, I don't know. And maybe I'm just like oversensitive to it.
No. I think that's the clear reading. I think the clear reading is in a twisted way. She finds her voice at the end of the story. She's voiceless. She's manipulated by this like terrible guy who, this is not consensual sex that happens.
Yeah. No.
This is a terrible situation. And it's only at the end of the story where there's that very powerful passage where she's like, and then she screamed in the way that the other woman who got killed didn't. And that's like she's arrived,
Yeah. Oh, well, and there's something too, the sense that her voice has like been perverted through this whole story, because when she calls out in the end, it's not for something good or heroic, right? It's not for please save my life. It's please save my life at the expense of this burglar's life. Take him, not me. Protect me, take him. And she's initiating a sacrifice with her voice at the very end. Whereas maybe, in the beginning of the story, before her relationship with Ray, I would like to think, and maybe this is just wishful, that Beth would have, it says that she had wanted to ask, what are you doing to that poor woman? And maybe she would have used her voice for something like that. But in the end, I feel like she just got so corrupted by something. And I'm very curious to discuss what the something is. Hello, Mateo. Welcome.
Yeah. I think, however, if we exist within the dark logic of the story, that in fact, she hasn't been corrupted. She's received knowledge.
Corrupted or converted. Is that maybe the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're here and you change, and like corrupted is like you're changed for the worse, she is also changed in such a way that she can now participate in this society. Right. So that's the double thing. It's like to participate in this society, you have to become worse, which, although if you didn't do that, you could be even worse, I think is what Ray suggests in his long monologue about how if you don't become bad, you'll be more bad.
Yeah. It's, well, tell me. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like trying to think back. You had mentioned that a short story shows like someone's growth, like a before and an after.
or just like a critical moment, right? Like a
Mm.
defining, I don't think that, like, again, like this is just kind of an ongoing conversation that I'm having. And it's like, it's not necessarily a before and after. I think that puts a lot of pressure. I think this story is that, but I think in general, it's just like, this is a singular moment,
Mm. Do you think that this moment that Beth goes through clarifies who she already was, or do you think that it shows how she's changed over this short period of time? Like, has
Ooh,
Beth changed?
that's juicy.
This is what I found myself thinking about, and I actually had to go back and look at a few things, but I'm curious. I mean, what are your thoughts on Beth as a character?
I think ultimately she's just becoming who she destined was to become. I think she was destined to become a New Yorker.
Hmm.
As she witnesses a murder, she sees this God figure in the sky, the God figure that later provides her salvation. She was like already on the train. I think if she
Mm.
doesn't see that figure, then she leaves New York.
Hmm. And goes back to, and it's such a contrast. She goes back to Bennington, Vermont, I
Bennington, she
think.
goes to the hills of Vermont. Yeah.
And it's
Lord
like white
Huntress. Oh,
picket
yeah.
fences. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
The hills. It sounds the collegiate vibes.
Idyllic. Yeah.
Very idyllic. Okay. Lord Huntress says she feels fear. She also answers him in ways that she says is smaller and less possessed, strong, as how it normally is, and more like how she verbally responded to the murder.
I got that too. And I think it actually outright says,
Oh, well,
well,
she
first of all,
definitely, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, no.
Well, I know. I think we're thinking the same thing when she's in the elevator and
Hmm.
she likes, I'm Beth in room 707. And then it says in a meek voice that she had trained herself to lose or whatever. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that
Yep.
part.
Nope. That's exactly what I was going to, that's exactly what I was going to say. And oh, there's so much interesting character development slash character information in that, in how she reacts to things and in how she reacts to how she finds herself responding to this situation.
Okay,
Um,
here's a thought
what's your
that
thought?
additionally, like to continue the idea that she doesn't change, or like the idea that she's just discovering who she really is versus changing. She does, like all the other New Yorkers at the beginning, witness a terrible murder and does nothing about it.
Yeah.
In some ways, nothing really has changed in the first scene and the last scene. You know,
You know, that's so interesting. And I think that's part of what makes this story so. The intro calls this a quintessential horror story. This won the Edgar Award in 1974 for the best short horror story. And there's a reason I think that this is such a famous one. It's because there's so much ambiguity, I think, that Ellison leaves us with as to what's actually going on with Beth. I think that in this case, uh, Ray, the creepy guy, the psychopath, he's pretty clear like who he is, but like Beth, I'm left with some doubts. So she does witness the murder, but it does say at the bottom of page 119, she wanted to yell, to scream, "What are you doing to that woman?" But her throat was frozen. Two iron hands that had been immersed in dry ice for 10,000 years clamped around her neck. She could feel the blades sliding into her own body. And it's interesting because what he's describing is a feeling of helplessness, but is it helplessness because she's terrified, or are there actually some metaphorical hands around her throat keeping her from having a true expression to watching this murder? And that's where, to me, it felt really, really ambiguous in a really artful way. But I would like to know also if I am off track with that.
I mean, I like that. I think that it's true that we have a character who doesn't uh, have a lot of agency
Yeah.
until the end. It's like, she breaks the sort of tired rule of a protagonist should make choices. Da 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 da. Things are
Yeah.
essentially happening to her.
That's
Like
very true.
she gets in
Yes.
the she moves to the city because that's where her work is. like, yes, at some level that's a decision, but there's probably nowhere else she would go. She's working in choreography, so that's kind of decided for her. She lives in this big building. She witnesses a murder. This is no decisions so far, really.
Right.
Meets dude in the elevator. That's something that happened to her.
Right.
Dates guy. That's something that happened to her effectively. She was gaslit into this terrible man's life. And it's only until the end. So, I think that's another way to conceive of the story, is like, this is the day this young woman like made her first decision, almost, you could say.
I appreciate your reading of that too. And I appreciate you also bringing up her agency, because I had thought of her as an active character, but I think to your point, like, really the only thing she decisively does is stain her window shutters. Like, she does that for sure. She moves into this apartment building that arguably is the home to a creepy religious cult vis-a-vis Rosemary's Baby. And it's so weird. It's so bizarre what she ends up passively doing. You're right. Like, there's passive voice. And even after the elevator scene, the next thing it just jumps into, on her third date with him, they had their first fight.
Right.
And it's so passive. It's not like she enjoyed dating him, or, she, like, it just leaps into on this third date that maybe she did or did not really agree to, or really want to go on. So, oh my gosh, because looking at the end, as you were saying, is the end a moment of empowerment for Beth, or is it a moment of, like, evil? And is there a difference?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think that is what this story is saying.
Oh, and there's so much. Oh, and okay, Mateo says the story has religious stuff in it. Very interesting. Is it Lovecraftian?
I think this refers to this comment. Ray is a priest
gotcha.
of the Black Mass to a new god,
yeah.
and the others are members of the church as well. She was converted.
Right.
And that's explicit. I underline this. Now she was one of them.
Yes.
As the pieces of the night's sacrifice fell past her, bleeding and screaming. Yeah.
The night's sacrifice being the burglar.
The Rosemary's Baby vibes here.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. She speaks up for herself by slapping him, which gets her kicked out of their church cult.
Right. That's when Ray begins ignoring her and pretending like she doesn't exist. So she almost has to. So she sort of, by doing that, earns her way as the next sacrifice, and buys her way out of that sacrifice by replacing herself with the burglar, who is then brutally sacrificed. And so, yeah.
Okay, but per this agency question, though, this does. I've been looking for the part where it's like she gave herself to the city, or like, where is that?
I feel like that's not until later. So is this where
the three things that you mentioned?
Yeah, she busied herself with other things. She took on 3 new charting jobs. She tried to decorate the apartment. She actually, it's very interesting. She turns her balcony into a flower bed. And it was originally a flower bed in which the original woman, Leona, was murdered. She was murdered in a flower bed. And this is where Beth is almost murdered, in the flower bed she creates.
Oh, okay. I think, yeah.
Yeah, she decided to give
repeated
herself.
Line is like, and the city responded to her overtures.
Right.
Okay.
And
I think we
and
can
right
read
before
this
that,
as,
it's right. Oh, I'm sorry. I get so excited. But right before that is exactly what you were just talking about. That's all. Closing the window. She went to give herself, to involve herself in the city.
Yeah.
Like, that's, and then right after that is that refrain, and the city responded to her overtures.
And I think the overtures represent her trying to maintain the self that she's outgrowing.
Yeah.
She's the snake in the skin. She's trying to hold on to it. She's trying to be a good person. She's trying to get involved, but every time she sort of lives out a certain morality that she brought from the beautiful liberal arts schools of Bennington, the city responds to her overtures with like a slap in the face, metaphorically. She gets splashed. She gets cursed out. She gets harassed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she gets assaulted multiple times. And so I'm what I'm curious here is it seems that at least in Ray's eyes, when Ray is explaining, like, she's like, why are you like this? And he's like, the city made me this way. Or I have to be this way because it's New York City, baby. Or he says something like that. Do you think that Ray sees himself as a victim?
I didn't feel that when I read it. I felt it was one of those moments kind of when the writer is coming through.
Ooh,
It's like the writer is giving a character, the character becomes a mouthpiece for a
for
sort
the
of
author.
a certain set of ideas. Which like here I think is done well enough and it's consistent enough with Ray's character that I didn't really take issue with it. But that's what it felt like for me. This felt like on some like kind of on the road. What's the name of that whole movement? Beat. Howl, Ginsberg, Howl, like
Oh, yeah. Be poet.
angel-headed
Yeah, yeah.
hipsters, dead in the night. You know, it felt
Yeah.
like that. This effusive expression of life in the city. The language expands in that passage. I didn't feel like, even if we take out that whole theory of like, oh, this is the author using a mouthpiece, and we just give it to Ray, I don't think it's necessarily justifying how he became that way. It
No.
is kind of like it is kind of at some level like, this is how you have to be, baby. This is the way it is. Perversely educational, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mateo's saying it sounds like he's arguing I'm a product of my environment.
I don't think he is. I don't think he really has a problem with his depravity.
No, he doesn't. And he embraces it, I think.
Yeah.
But I think what Mateo's saying is he's blaming it on, he's not saying like, yes, I'm a terrible person. I take responsibility for my actions. He's saying I'm a terrible person, but it's okay because the city made me this way. Like, I think that's what
yeah.
he's doing is not taking responsibility for what a horrible person he's chosen to be.
And I think it's like, and I sort of said this earlier, not only that, he is saying that if you don't do this, you will be worse. So,
Right, but I don't know if he gets to say that. Like, I don't know if I don't think it's true. I think maybe that's what he believes.
Yeah, I don't know either. That is like the argument he's making, right? He's like,
Yeah.
You can't hate everybody, you can't beat people up. Instead, you can just, you know, date co-eds and be nasty, you know.
Yeah.
It's all very messed up. But yeah, like that does seem to be the ideological thesis that loops around at the end, you know.
Yeah.
So great comments coming in. Laura Huntress, it says the words Ray Gleason had said in a moment filled with what he had become, with the utter hopelessness and finality of the choice the city had forced on him.
I think that's why I
Laura,
wondered.
Thank you
Right.
for pinpointing this.
Right. I think that's why I started wondering if he was a victim. And when I talk about victim, this is what I talked about a little bit earlier when I said that, like, you know, I believe we shouldn't victim blame, but I think in this case Ray is he's saying the city has forced this choice on him. I think he was grateful to make that choice. I think he was okay, like, just because he seems like a psychopathic individual. He seemed okay, like, oh, the city wants me to be a murderer. Okay, I'll be a racist murderer, you know, terrible person.
Now, did he, just one little point of detail?
Yeah.
I think he was born and raised in New York. Am I remembering that right?
That I don't remember. I don't remember if he said that or not. That I don't remember. Oh, he says, I'm like this because I'm a New Yorker, baby, because I live here, because I've lived in this great big snapping dog of a city all my life, and I'm mad as a mudfly. So all my life. So maybe he was raised here. And then you kind of wonder, you know, the choice that the city's forced upon him when did that happen? Has he just been like this his whole life ever since he lived in New York?
Mm.
Has he become like this recently? And I don't think we know.
Why do you think he pinpointed Beth?
Why he
Like
pinpointed
the
Beth, you
the
said?
Beth, yeah, like the night of the murder, he's across the way, he sees
Mm,
Beth, and he
mm.
decides to hit on her the next day in the elevator. Like, what's behind that?
That's such a good question. Um, I thought initially in reading it that it might be because she's the new girl, she's the fresh face, she's the Mia Farrow arriving. It seems to be hinted at, and again, none of this is explicitly stated, but this apartment building seems to be full of what I'm going to call this cult to this new god, which could be read, like you said, on a lot of different levels. It could also just be symbolic of this is what it means to be a New Yorker. Like it could be read on that level too. Um, but she's a fresh face in this building. She's innocent. She has pictures of Vermont all over her walls in her apartment. She's uncorrupted, maybe. Maybe
Mm.
he also sees a potential in her for cruelty. Because one of the things this I didn't know what to make of this, and maybe you do. Um, right after she sees the murder, she calls off of work, and if I can just read this, um, she calls off of work. It's page 122, and she's like, I can't come into work today. And her boss is like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? She explained what happened the night before. And as she told him, she realized that the newspapers had been justified in holding the tone against the 26 witnesses to the death of Leona Corelli. Um, he says he understands there's a distance in his voice, and he hung up while she was thanking him. It then says, so she dresses up in a very fashionable outfit, and she wonders idly if that heavy silver bracelet was still in the window of Georg Jensen's. Like, she's thinking about shopping.
That's how I read it. It struck me as well. I didn't like try to like parse it, but yeah, that was felt very odd.
It goes into detail. Like she picks out this argyle, I think it's purple, I don't know, this vest, and she wonders, and it's like it I can very clearly say that if I had just seen that murder and like just told my boss about it, I would not very easily be able to go to thinking about like, ooh, I wonder if those cute shoes are on sale. Like
Well,
that's cold-hearted,
maybe this
right?
is her like basic good Bennington girl self. Right.
Right.
I mean, this is still her like clinging to her
Oh,
pre-New York self, maybe.
maybe. Oh, that's interesting. So you're seeing it as like maybe she's not she's like trying to think of something else because the murder was just too terrible, not she is desensitized to this murder and is
Yes.
like thinking about like my cute
Yes.
outfit. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Okay,
in the
so
same
she's
way
looking
that
for escapism.
right. In like the way that like a coping mechanism for any kind
Mm.
of tragedy is like in something banal and familiar,
Mm.
you know,
I
maybe.
appreciate you saying that too. And again, I think it can be read in both ways. I think you can also read it as something has happened to her, or she's already like this where she sees the horrible death of a woman and is able to not care. But I think you can read both of those things into this.
Yeah. I mean, jumping ahead to the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what can we take as this from writers? I mean, that to me resembles some of these Shirley Jackson sentences that we encountered,
Yes.
where like not only could it mean both things, both possible meanings are like working on us concurrently.
Yeah.
So that is very cool.
Yeah. It's yeah. Oh my gosh, and there's so much going on here with oh, sorry. There's some good comments coming in.
Mateo says, I think this story is still relevant. Tragedies happen daily, but I feel like we can get desensitized to it. Yeah. I mean, I do have a personal anecdote from living in New York that I thought of immediately when,
Go on, yeah.
well, I was on the subway, and a fight broke out. You know, One of the people in the fight was like a very well-dressed, middle-aged, kind of probably headed to the financial district, had his briefcase, and the other person was like kind of a rougher figure. Big fight, and everyone sort of, disperses away from the fight. And the initiator of the fight, this like rougher guy, when the doors open at the next stop, he gets off. And at this point, the other man is just like, there's like blood everywhere. He is hurt. He's kind of whimpering. There's just like blood pouring down his face, and like no one helps him, and everyone is just, because no one wants to like touch the blood, presumably, or no one wants to engage. And it's just like, I think if this happens in a small town, somebody like at least is like, here, take my shirt or something. And just, it didn't happen at all, and all by himself, he got off at the next stop. So like the New Yorkness of this did feel true to me, at least from the time that I lived there, at least.
Interesting. So that there's so many people there that it could be like, so someone else will deal with this.
Yeah, right. The
And-
anonymity,
Yeah.
that liberates you from any kind of moral obligation, right?
Oh, liberates you from any kind of moral obligation. Oh, that is. And that actually reminds me of. Oh, I really want to find this now. I'll find it. I'll find it in a little bit. But gosh, yeah. Oh wait, here it is. After Beth like sacrifices this burglar in her place, she understood with the blood knowledge of survivors at any cost that the reason the witnesses to the death had done nothing was not that they had been frozen with horror, not that they'd been desensitized by TV, not that they didn't want to get involved. They were worshipers at a black mass the city had demanded be staged, not once but 1,000 times a day in this insane asylum of steel and stone. So I feel like at the same time, this few sentences that I just read, in your experience, like these guys on the subway, like it was a matter of, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to like get literal blood on my hands. I don't want to have to show up in court and like be a witness to what happened here. And it's like in this exact same sentence, it says like, that's not why they did it. They did this because they were worshiping an evil demon. Like, what do you think? What do you think of that?
I mean, at some level, okay, I think it's really significant that Ellison saves some of his most heightened, most poetic language to describe this God. And to me, it just resonates with this, like, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. There's like a pride to it, right? Like there's a pride to the insensitivity. There's a pride to the fact that like, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to show up in court, a pride in the hardenedness, which like, maybe is manufactured, maybe that's like artificial to justify the moment. I don't know, that's like some deep, heavy stuff. But I think fundamentally here is like the points being made is like, to be okay living in New York, you have to embrace evil. I mean, I can't really get around that reading.
Yeah, no, I can't either. And both readings exist for me quite comfortably, honestly. I'm okay with it thinking like, oh yeah, no, there's an actual demon that the story is talking about, but also no, it's symbolic of like what happens when you move to a large city with a very complicated history like that.
Okay. That's valuable.
Yeah.
That makes me think of the introduction here.
Oh,
you said this is representative of what happens. So our editor, David Harwell, by the way, if you're hopping on the stream,
oh yeah,
this is the anthology that Sarah and I are working our way through. This is a horror story club. We're here every week. The intro says, which is the part I'm looking for. Okay. Harlan Ellison, the popular fantasist, when he writes in the horror mode, is a conduit through whom the horrors of everyday life are transformed into fictions that reawaken us, reconnect us to those daily horrors. So Right. So what Ellison is not saying,
Hmm.
according to that, is like to live in New York, you have to be evil. But to live in New York, you do have to accommodate a certain moral worldview
Mm.
that is less than good. Otherwise, you will go insane,
Mm.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and it really raised the question for me too, like if this is the cost of one person's survival, is that survival worth it? Like this is a story without any heroes, right? A hero is the kind of character in a story who will sacrifice themselves. Like they'll take on the burden. They'll, to end whatever suffering might be transferred onto somebody else, they take that onto themselves. That's what makes them a hero. There are no heroes in this story. There are only people who create more victims. And
I love that. Yeah, there are
the
only victims. I mean, there are only
yeah.
victims,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I mean, and is that something that you would say like I don't know. I keep thinking about this fight that you experienced on a subway, and it's like, well, were there any heroes there? And it's like in that moment, maybe not. Like in that
Well, yeah,
moment,
it's like
nobody
no
stepped
one,
up
no
to
one,
help.
no one, no one broke up the fight.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just like you just go the other end of the spectrum. And if you have like a small town, like somebody steps in and breaks up that fight, you know?
Well, why though? Why? This is
Well, okay. I mean,
interesting.
the obvious reason, right, would be like they're friends with one of the people, and it's like there's a personal investment in abating the violence. But I think even outside of that, I mean, I've lived in a town of 2,000 people before, and people would just pull over if you had a flat tire, total
Yep.
strangers.
Mm.
So, like, yeah,
Mm.
like I don't know, like what that line is, and it does have to do with the anonymity.
It
I,
might. You know what though? It just what you just said about it made me think that it's not maybe about the anonymity so much as it is in a small town like that, people feel responsible for each other. Like
mhm.
they're responsible for each other, and maybe in a big populace of millions, like nobody feels responsible like for someone else's safety. And like you're kind of on your own and you don't help the stranger change their tire or you don't stop. I want to say there was even a real case like Kitty, someone who got murdered and like everybody just watched. And maybe
Mm.
this just happened a lot. I'm not
No, I
I should
mean,
have
I'm
looked it
sure.
up.
I mean, yeah, I'm
But
sure there's
like
been famous, like documented famous stuff. Yeah, for sure.
so is this kind of talking about what happens when you don't feel I was going to say ironically when you don't have a sense of community. I mean, this cult in the apartment building, symbolic or not, is definitely its own community. But when you don't, feel responsible for the well-being of other people, like is that
Yeah, I think maybe it could be like most interesting to take it out of the New York context
yeah.
because the New Yorkness of it all. Yes, sure, but I don't know. Mexico City is not like this. For example. But like whatever. Like so, it's like maybe the core issue is not that it's New York. Maybe it's like being an atomized individual in a big space. Maybe it's not the
Mhm.
New Yorkness of it all. Maybe it's like Beth. And Beth has come to the big city with the bright lights and she's all by herself. So,
Yes.
maybe that's ultimately what this is about versus like this is what it means to be a New Yorker.
That's such a good point. Is that aloneness that you're not responsible for anyone else, but also no one is looking out for you. And she has to
Yeah.
like scream to a literal devil to like spare her because boy, that's such an interesting thing. You bring that up now. The only thing we hear about any of Best Friends are she takes someone to the airport and watches them leave. Like that's the
Mm.
only interaction she has with a friend, I think, in this whole story. The story we read yesterday, The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois, that woman has her father searching for her, has someone intervening for her. People come for each other. In this story, there's like nobody's coming to help you.
Yeah, no, I mean like no one on this, like other apartment. I feel like what's the Hitchcock one?
Oh yeah, yeah. Rear Window or
Rear Oh, it's not that one. That's the rear window on the
nope.
car. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
But
I know what you're
apartment
talking about.
apartment movies, like there's like the
Yes.
person across the hall. You know what I mean? Like, shoot, there's no mention of anyone else. And I think,
Mm-mm.
when you don't have any kind of mirror, that puts you vulnerable to something like getting gaslighted by the
Boy,
hot
you're
guy across the
absolutely
way,
right.
whatever,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, I think like if we want to like, I don't know, this is kind of just a big, cool thought, like, maybe about like literature is like, what's the most interesting version of the story?
Mm.
And I think there's like a really big story here that maybe you can set in any city or any large place. I mean, it does feel deeply New York. It does feel like Harlan Ellison, I don't know, like lived in New York. It does feel that way. Um, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's almost
No,
easy. It's almost a little
yeah.
easy to kind of like be like, this is a tale of how to become a hardened New Yorker.
Right. And it feels dismissive of their experience because you're able to say, like, oh, that's just New York being New York, which is the same argument that Ray uses, right?
Right. Right.
Like, when, yeah, even if this wasn't New York, if this was any city, like, I would feel more like it was more effective if we couldn't just blame it on, oh, New York being New York. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, what resonate? I want to get into some of these comments. I
yeah.
know
I'm
these are
seeing the
really good.
comments
What
too.
does resonate, and I sort of said this already once, but like what does feel very New York to me is almost like pride. The
Mm,
pride in the callousness.
pride and callousness. Well, I mean, that's the American dream, though, right? Like individualism at all costs.
I think especially the New York dream. All right, Laura Hunter says the quote at the end fits with that. It says that apathy can lead to violence due to the desperate. Oh yeah, totally. Okay.
Can we? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Let's.
talk about that quote
Well,
because
I'm
I'm
gonna
curious.
let's read it. This is great.
Yeah.
So this is kind of in the way that stories and books often have quotes preceding the text. This one has one afterwards. This is from Love and Will by Raleigh May. When inward life dries up, when feeling decreases and apathy increases, when one cannot affect or even genuinely touch another person, violence flares up as a demonic necessity for contact, a mad drive forcing touch in the most direct way possible. Yes.
Yeah. I have never, I'm going to say this and it might not be true, but I feel like I've never seen a quote at the end of a story like that. Like you're right. It usually comes at the beginning to like set the tone for the story. How did you feel reading that quote after, like, I'm asking a leading question and I'm asking the leading question
It's
of,
okay. That's okay.
I'm just going to admit it. My leading question was, do you think the last line would have been more effective without then reading a quote explaining the moral of the story?
I mean, right. So, like, I think aesthetically, I don't love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like Constantine's bow. Constantine, the character from Chekhov's The Seagull. He's this angry young writer, and he's ranting about all the other writers. And he's like, they all end their stories wrapping all up with a bow. This does feel like a bow and potentially reduces possible interpretations. I feel you on that. That said, I really like this quote. It's
Yeah.
compelling, and it did, maybe it does cinch it together in a way that is necessary, because in a lot of ways there is like an untetheredness here.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot like the sort of, I didn't even sort of read the gaslighting, and she didn't even realize. I didn't like, I thought that was a moment of surrealism. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think you and Laura's reading is more likely. But this quote kind of helps. It did solidify my interpretation, and I wonder if the story will stick with me more because of this quote. I would hazard maybe. But yeah, I don't know. On principle, I'm like, nah, don't tell me what it means.
Yeah. 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 Very much too. At last, that last line, by the way, is at last she was unafraid. And it was so good, so very good not to be afraid.
Yeah. So I mean, this is like I per this like idea of short stories and stuff. It's like this is iconic. It's like a whole coming of age story
Yeah.
in 8 pages. It's like The college kid goes to the city with the big bright lights. It's hard, but then she becomes strong.
Or she falls to its
Succumbs to
falls to
its
its yeah, succumbs to its corruption, or falls to its I don't even know what the right word would be there. But this really brings me back to at the very beginning of this conversation when I was attempting to summarize this story, and it was so hard because, to your point, so much of what happens in this story is a little vague. Like, is she being gaslit? Is this a surreal artistic moment? You kind of don't know for sure. And so, like, when you summarize the story, you're like, well, then this happened, kind of, or maybe, and then this maybe happened, and we're not sure. There's just a lot of very artfully done uncertainty. And I can see, to that point, why that quote would be included at the very end to tie it all in a bow. Maybe and I don't know if that was Ellison's choice or an editor, or
right, could have been an editor. Yeah,
I never know. At the end of the day, I never know who's responsible for the little idiosyncrasies in the stories that we read. I also found 2 typos, but we won't go there.
Hartwell.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah, that's great.
I circled them.
That's amazing. I'm into that.
But
well, should we talk about what we can take away here as writers? Let's see.
Yes.
Did we speak to everyone's point? Mateo says, but also Mexico in general is more community driven than big cities in the U.S. IMO. That's why I made that distinction. I truly feel like neither this, of course, nor the subway incident would happen. I do think there are cultural. This is a New York thing in some ways. Yeah. Okay. We're writers. Laura's a writer. Mateo's a writer. We got writers in the mix. Y'all, what can we take from this story?
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
I mean,
I'm tired of it. No, I'm kidding.
I know, right?
I'm tired of
learning.
Much
pressure. Oh, wait. Okay. Well, I do want to answer this question, but I do briefly want to touch on the title.
Yes. I've got time. If you do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, sure. This is literally what
This is what I'm here for.
This is what I'm here for. Yeah. The Whimper of Whipped Dogs applies to the psycho killer and the burglar, right?
Yes. In the psycho killer in the beginning. And when we say psycho, we're not talking about Ray, who is a non-killing psycho. This is the murderer from the very beginning who stabs Lenora many times, many more times than is necessary, and
does unspeakable things.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of imagery, and then there's also and no matter how bad a picture you have, there's some other stuff.
Like,
that's
it's worse.
Very Lovecraftian.
Yeah. Yes. It's unspeakably worse. And it's interesting so the Whimper of Whipped Dogs is such a visceral, powerful, horrifying image. I'm an animal person. I know you have dogs. First of all, the phrase "the Whimper of Whipped Dogs" is just repulsive to me. But also, this is the sound that the murderer makes, I want to say, right after he finishes the murder. And at the same time, it's noted that Beth is laughing like a hyena, like a gibbon, while he is whimpering like a whipped dog.
Yeah.
Beth is giggling, and you're like, oh, is that a shock response, or is that something happening?
It's kind of like everyone in this story is a victim and everyone's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick bit of praise for that image, as grisly as it is. The Whimper of a Whipped Dog. I mean, it's so effective because it conjures both a sound and an image.
Yeah.
And an experience of trauma, all in 4 words. So I just respect Ellison. That was very effective.
Yeah. And he mentions it twice, which I thought was interesting. Right. The Whimper of Whipped Dogs is on page 121, She hears herself making deranged gibbon noises, and the man below, the murderer, is making a pathetic trap sound like the whimper of whipped dogs. Almost like he's a victim. He's
That's
to
the
be
first one.
pitied. That's
That's
the
the
first time.
okay.
And then the second time that the whimper of whipped dogs is explicitly brought up. Oh, it's actually 3 times. So page 130. Oh, this is so interesting. Okay, so Beth is half conscious. The form took firmer shape, enormous paws with claws and shapes that no animal she'd ever seen had possessed, and the burglar, black, poor, terrified, whimpering like a whipped dog, was stripped of his flesh.
Yeah, okay. So, okay. Perhaps the most pathetic, pitiful, empathy generating image of the story is applied to the murderers.
Yeah. Which is why I was interested, like, is this a story about victimhood? And I think it's very interesting, just in light of a lot of the social issues that we've been talking about in some of these works, that the burglar who then attempts to murder Beth very suddenly, like he's almost not in charge of his own actions, is specifically black and poor and terrified and disadvantaged, and ends up being really, really pitiful sounding.
Yeah, it makes me think of like, and I didn't have read since high school, but like The Jungle. Did you have to read that in high school?
Oh, Sinclair Lewis.
Yeah.
The meat packing plant.
Sinclair Lewis or Upton Sinclair?
Oh, Upton Sinclair.
Upton,
Wait,
Upton,
who's Sinclair Lewis?
I don't know.
No, you are right.
Else.
I am.
Well, if I'm remembering right, that was like the underlying thesis is like when social conditions are such, it just engenders, violence.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get into some of these comments. Mateo says you guys mentioned something about how the city was like, right. There was a description of the city as like a snapping dog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Laura Huntress, it was well written, but not exactly the kind of horror that I want to write. I'm finding myself better able to define what I enjoy writing. I think Asa said something similar the other day. What do you think of that, Sarah?
Oh, Laura, I appreciate you saying that so much. I wrote a description for this video for my side of things on YouTube. And I said, like, there are a lot of different types of horror. This is not a type of horror that I enjoy. I love the monsters. I love eerie ghosts. I love haunted houses. I love kaiju. I love, whatever. I did not love this kind of horror. I did not love the nihilistic cruelty. I do not like, in the same way that I don't like the Saw movies or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't like a lot of the slashers because they seem to revel in and enjoy the cruelty and the human suffering. And I'm not necessarily saying that this story like reveled in human suffering, but that was definitely like a central theme. And it wasn't like, oh, tee-hee, spooky ghost. It was, oh boy, terrible things are happening and there's nobody to help you. And maybe I dislike it because that is what scares me the most, is ending up in a situation like Beth. Like, I would happily move into a haunted house. I'd be like, hey, ghosts, let's hug. And it would be a beautiful thing. But if I was in a relationship with Ray, like, that's my like ultimate nightmare. So Laura, I appreciate you pointing out that there's like so many valid types of horror, but not every one of them is maybe something that you want to emulate. So very much agree.
So yeah, just to see how precise we can get there, Sarah, let me ask you. So for you, is it the actual language, the actual descriptions that definitely seems troubling? But is it also the ideas? Like, for example, are there other kinds of stories that kind of, and I'm thinking movies too, right? You've got Saw, which has gore, but then you also have movies that are really kind of devoid of violence, but are still pretty nihilistic. For you, is there a resistance to both those threads, or is it just like nihilism via like lurid violence? Is like what
the lurid, honestly, I'm such an American because the lurid violence I'm actually fine with. Like, what am I thinking of? The Robert Rodriguez One of the Grindhouse movies he did
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Cherry, the one she has a machine gun for a leg.
Yeah, I got the image.
That
I
is one
can't
of my
remember the
favorite
name.
movies. It is disgusting. It is blood spatter everywhere. It is pus. It is disgusting. But like, I love that movie. And so I think for me, it wasn't the violence and the disgusting, like something about like his skin was sandpapered at the end of something, and it was like it was like, oh, that's gross, but it wasn't like I need to go reflect on my life. Like
Right.
her being in an abusive relationship that she can't escape, and like being continuously like assaulted and
Yeah.
her, like that is truly horrific for me.
And I think
So
like Rodriguez or Tarantino, vast a magnitude of violence, but it's so stylized that
yeah,
I think there's like a distancing element there.
I think so. At some point, it's corn syrup, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. In a way that this one you don't.
it's not corn syrup in
No,
here.
it's really not.
Or if it is, the corn syrup isn't what we're focused on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to read Mateo's comment, Sarah?
I do. So Mateo says this type of writing isn't really my style, but I do feel like it's important. It's kind of a safe. Oh, yes, I've heard this a lot about horror. So Mateo says it's kind of a safe space to talk about more upsetting topics, similar to how I've heard dark romance does it. That's a really good point. And I know that like in times of strife, political, economic, horror becomes a much more popular genre because it's a way that we can interact with these topics without like endangering our actual selves. Like horror, you're right, horror is a safe space to talk about some of these things. So I definitely think that's a valid point. Oh, I haven't read this one, Lore. Should I not read it? Lore says, I also read Again by Ramsey Campbell, another intense and explicit read, and not exactly what I'm trying to write myself, with a very sad, wailing face.
You really don't want to sleep tonight. That's
I will not be reading that one, I think.
Laura follows up. Yes, Mateo, important to read wide and varied.
Yeah.
I like the commentary in Squid Games. I don't necessarily like all the violence. Yeah, agree. Like the overarching metaphor of Squid Games, and what's the other? Well, like Parasite, of course.
Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah, his earlier one about like the monster, the host.
Oh, the host. I love the host.
Yeah. I think all that metaphoric train is super rich going on over there in Korea. All right, exactly, Sarah. I love violent films as well. This was different. Perhaps the explicit rape, relationship abuse, and cruelty. Yeah. It's vivid. You know, he spares no details. You know, it's really explicit. The language, the images, it's visceral, it's physical, it's heavy. The story, again, is worth a read, but there is an undead BDSM grandma. That sounds...
I was going to say, what if that makes me actually want to read it now? Like, undead BDSM grandma? I mean, I understand what you're saying, though, and I appreciate the wording.
Y'all, it has been a pleasure. Oh my gosh.
Is
your big book of science fiction in reach, Sarah?
It is. It's right here next to my leg. I will hold it up, my friends. I will also knock over my mic and set it back up again. Okay, we're a little bit off schedule this week, but we are back on, I believe, next week, Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, we have Sci-Fi Story Club, in which we are reading The Fate of the Poseidonia for next week. And Horror Club will meet again next Thursday. Both of these are at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. And I was like, where's my book? It's literally right in front of me. The Dark Descent, we will be continuing our trek, our descent downward, if you will. Next week, with one that I've heard so much about and never read myself.
Yeah, this is a classic, and because it's a public domain, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this out loud tomorrow during lunch hour.
Yes.
So I can't remember what time I said I was going to do it. But if you want to be read this story, I'm going to read it tomorrow in the rain again, with the rain a little quieter so we can hear the story better. But yes,
Wonderful.
Nathaniel Hawthorne, young Goodman Brown. This is iconic. First sentence: young Goodman Brown came forth at sunset into the street at Salem Village, but put his head back after crossing the threshold to exchange a parting kiss with his young wife. Dun, 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 dun. Gothic, we're in New England, folks.
Ooh.
We're 200 years ago.
It's going to be good.
Real. Yeah.
And you definitely want Asa to read it to you. It's going to be great.
Y'all, I had so much fun last time. It was actually so fun. And I'm so glad that we were able to like experience that story together.
Yes.
Discord, folks. There's a Discord.
There is a Discord. I've just linked to it. And I believe Asa has also just linked to it. I believe there is already a link there for your reading for tomorrow's.
I think it's in there. I think
Young
it's in
Goodman
there.
Brown. Is that what it
Young
is?
Goodman Brown.
Yes.
And on Friday, just to pitch this again, I'm gonna try to really kind of do a download of everything I know about writing scenes, which are a few things. It's a place where I feel good and I kind of want to share, and then we can kind of parlay that into a writing sesh. So save the date. I put a poll on what time, if folks are interested, vote, and I'll try to see if that will work. Anyway, it's a good week, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. We're so happy to see you. Thanks for reading with us. This has been a delight.
It's been a delight. We made it, y'all. We survived.
We survived. We are the survivors that he talks about at the end of the story. Oh, I hope not. The blood knowledge survivors at any cost. That's us.
It's we'll see how we feel at the end of the anthology.
Okay. All right, friends. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.